You always throw me off.
Oh yeah.
Because, I
So
mean, we're that close together and we're an hour apart.
What when I go get lumber, I change time zones.
yeah. Y-axis motion noise. So it could be coming from those couplings in the back. Oh, let me turn the screen on.
But it was literally only doing it. So when I moved the gantry just to see if I could recreate the sound,
Mhm.
I couldn't recreate the sound. It was
Okay, so it's
only
when
while
a
it was
job was running.
Yep.
Was it going at a diagonal, kind of, maybe just a little bit?
Uh, possibly.
Okay, because I mean, I've had mine make weird noises just going around.
Yeah.
You know, like if you do that rubber band frame around a circle, try that
Oh,
sometime.
nope, nope, nope. That makes some god awful noise.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it's
because it
related to
hurt
that.
nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't. Um, I'm going to put this link in the chat. It may be something for you to check those couplers on the back.
Yep.
Uh,
Rubber band frame around a circle.
The
yeah,
circular frame
Yeah, from
from
Lightburn,
Lightburn.
there's a rubber band frame option.
yeah,
I've never even seen that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the dotted line that looks like a circle rather than the square.
But there's some documentation in here. But that's if the couplings are making noise. If it's only doing it in the job, I would say it's something in the motion planning. It's just making them resonate or something, because of the speed and direction they're going. Because I've had it do weird stuff. If it does it continuously or on different things, we might ought to dig a little bit deeper. Are you able to recreate that noise at will? I mean,
No,
okay.
no, I tried.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's probably, I think the planets were just in line when it was running that job, and the motion planning just made the motors do something goofy.
Look,
Uh,
man, trust me when I tell you, if I can find it, the planets have not aligned over the past 24 hours. So as odd as this sounds, and I don't know if you can see the score on the damn chicken.
Let me see if I can pull it up where I just see yours for a minute, so it's big.
Kill your.
Hold on.
Kill your.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go.
So
Okay.
if you see like here, this is not the Thunder, but on our other one, it literally stopped in the middle of the score over and over and over again for no reason, nothing wrong with the file, just randomly. So the stars have not aligned for
Huh.
us in the past 24 hours.
Does
the
that
other
other
thing? Is the other thing a
machine
turd?
exhibit the same conditions that a Thunder does, where we prefer to use send over start so that it sends the entire file over?
But we have never, in the 2 years that we've owned it until today and yesterday, sent the file and hit start. We've never had to do that.
Mhm.
That's kind of what frustrated us at first with the Thunder, just because of our workflow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it started, and you hit send and start, and it still did it, didn't it?
Yeah, I tried it all the
Yeah.
different ways. Yesterday I didn't try restarting the machine. I just shut it down and walked away. I was like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
I did restart my computer just in case that might have been it. And I didn't try back again. I was making chicken earrings. And I really wanted to get it right for a show on Saturday. So restarted again here today. Same things. Yeah, just super annoying. Thankfully, though, he came in and I was like, see, this is what it's doing. I'm not insane.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
I'm sorry. Question. So when you guys send your work over to the controller, you just hit start in Lightburn?
Yeah, for the past, year and a half that we've had the boss, that's all we ever had to do was just hit start in Lightburn, and the machine magically started doing all of its things as it should.
Well, is the problem in your boss machine or in your Thunder machine?
The problem is in the boss with the
okay.
It started and then it just stopped.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I know that Rich guy, or Robert, the guy always talks about at least once a week or once every other week, depending on how busy you are, clearing out all of your past jobs in the controller version, going in there and deleting all of your files off the controller, because he says every once in a while it can get a little wonky with your
Yeah.
busy work
Yeah,
and
but
stuff.
That's not going to affect the file itself. What that'll affect is you'll send a file, you'll go to pull it up on the machine, and it just won't show up.
No, it'll affect the file if it gets full. At least in our Thunder Ruida controllers with this
Where it just
firmware in
never
it,
shows up.
we've had it output things in the wrong place, turn text upside down, not send it all of that stuff. Now, there is a distinction here. Most of the Ruidas that are out there in the market that aren't Thunder don't have our firmware in them, because we've got the dual stage air assist, and we've got the the U axis or the A channel for the rotary instead of using Y and that kind of stuff. So part of the reason that send is better for us is just because our firmware is wonky with Lightburn, and it has to work with the other 99%. Now, also, if you're used to using start, see, a lot of people that have run other Chinese lasers don't ever have to hit send. They just use start. And in that instance, you don't have to clear the memory because it never goes to the controller's memory to begin with. It just
Exactly.
streams it over, it buffers it, and then it's gone. And that's
Yeah.
part of the problem with ours.
Yeah, now I have chicken in there. That's the only thing in that machine. But yeah, in the Thunder, that's something we definitely need to take the time and do. I do a lot of it, just rewrites it. So I don't know how much is actually in there, but I do need to take the time and do that.
You can check it from Lightburn.
Okay.
You can bring up the file list in Lightburn, hit refresh when you do, because when you first bring it up, it'll be empty. But if your machine is on, hit refresh, it'll bring it up. You can also empty the file list where you can delete one by one or do all of them.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, because I don't want to keep anything on the machine and just like go to the machine and go do. I want to run this. I would be so lost if I tried to do that.
Yeah, there's an easy button in Lightburn where you can just hit delete all files and it'll clear the controller out. And then you can streamline your workflow if you're not already by holding down the shift key. When you hit send, you'll still have 2 button presses for when it calls up the file and overwrite, but then the machine's autonomous. So you don't have to go interact with the control panel.
You have to click into Lightburn yourself, Safari.
Oh,
You're right.
crap.
Don't forget to make me your backup in case your computer goes.
Yeah, I'm running just 3 monitors now. I don't think I have. I was going to talk to Travis about that. I haven't yet. But I think my video card's okay. I think I'm just pushing it too hard. I've got 4 monitors on it, so I just need to get a secondary card and run the others off of that because I plan on adding a few more. There we go. Make organizer. There you go. Yeah, he's my backup, Grant, in case my computer messes up. It's weird this week. It's done it to me twice after I did a BIOS upgrade, but I was on a 1-hour training for one of them and my monitors just went, and I finished that training just talking to him on the phone, going completely blind, and it was awesome. And then I had another instance where I could see him, but we couldn't get audio. And that was something on their end. And we did it that way too, just by texting and chatting back and forth in the thing. And it actually worked out really well too. So I'm finding that overcoming some of these obstacles when doing the remote sessions is pretty satisfying. It's kind of neat.
Crash course in hand language.
Yeah.
Sign language, Jesus.
Yeah.
Hand language.
Yeah, hand language. I'm done. I think I need to go grab a 5-hour energy drink.
Yeah. So you've heard me talking about switching over support systems, and I just want to touch on that for a minute. We'll never lose continuity with you guys. If you email support, it's still going to work the same way, even if we have to work out of an email address instead of a support system for a day. You won't notice any difference in that respect because everything looks like emails anyway. What'll be different is the layout of the articles and the links in the articles are probably all going to be broken. So after we go to that new system, you'll still go to the same places. The addresses will be the same as far as getting to the documents and that kind of thing. But all of those links are going to be different in the ones that are hard coded in the articles. So we're going to have to spend lots and lots of time scouring those articles, and as people report them and updating the links. Like if there's an article like the cheat sheet, it is nothing but a bunch of links to other articles, and all of those are going to be broken. So that's the first one I'm going to work on. But there may be a little bit of turbulence on the documentation system and merging the service histories. But it won't interfere with our level of support. It just may look a little funny and feel weird for a minute. So I just want to put that out there. And we're shooting for a solid timeline, and I want to put out notices and a little video about it. But the way this stuff has been going, we've been playing fast and loose with it, just trying to get it all put together in short notice. So I'll do my best to keep everybody updated.
And Brian, if you guys end up needing like database support on that, that's what I do. So you could always reach out to me. I'll help you out wherever I can.
Word. Most of it's APIs,
Yeah.
but sometimes the data is not being parsed the way we want it
Yep.
to be. And I've got a parsing engine actually running on one of our servers, along with that URL shortener and QR code reader. Did you ever use that thing, Grant? Did you ever get into that short URL generator and QR thing that I sent you?
A
the
little
link to?
bit.
It's kind of archaic. I can get in there and show you how to use it. It's an old PHP script that I found somewhere, but it works good.
Yeah, it looks really old.
Hey, sometimes simple is better, you know?
Hey, but of course, anything that's probably over 10 years is probably really old to him, considering he's.
Were you going to say 12?
I stopped.
I wish I looked 12. I was still ugly when I was 12 too, though. So I don't know. I don't think it makes any difference. So, so if anybody's got any questions, I see a couple people on. Feel free to interrupt our banter and kick your mic on, tell us to shut up, and ask a question or make whatever comment you got. We kind of just play it by ear in here.
Nice.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll just keep going.
Right.
Hey, other than the Russian Baltic birch, is there other woods that people are having really good luck with, considering we're probably going to lose our supply chain for that wood? I just went and bought 85 sheets of plywood yesterday just so I'd have enough for a little while.
Yeah.
Well, Travis has got his pontoon boat ready to go across to Russia to pick it up, so you might want to talk with him.
Quit giving away my secrets.
That's where you've been all week.
Dude, we've just been getting hammered here on work. It's been stupid.
Good problem to have.
It is. It is.
It is, but I can't find employees that want to work or show up.
I hear you.
I don't have anything new. So if anybody has anything they want to talk about or pull up in Lightburn or any of that kind of stuff, we can kind of play that by ear. If not, I can always pull up the manual and we can start at chapter 1.
I think what you need to do is start with Lightburn and start doing each individual thing in Lightburn.
I don't know Lightburn well enough to do that, man. You're putting me on the spot. I learn every time I do a training session.
Well,
So especially
Grant's
with all the
there.
new stuff they put in it every day. So
Well, get Grant's there. Get him to participate.
Grant runs that laser a heck of a lot better than I do, practically speaking.
No, I can do photos pretty good, but
I can't.
besides
I
that,
can't. I'm going to work on some photos, especially with Odin. So
I'll say this though, my versatility with materials is probably up there with anybody who's used a laser with how many samples I've done.
they're
But
fun.
the bad thing is I
Meat
haven't
dog
documented
photo.
anything, which is really stupid.
Yeah, you
Hey,
got
Brian?
Dog there. Yeah, man.
If you want to have some fun with photos, you've got an Aurora sitting behind you, don't you?
Oh, I can make a foot look pretty on that in Lightburn.
Yeah.
Not with EasyCAD, but
No, but with the light burn, dude, it is
I love
flipping
it.
amazing.
I surprised myself. That's what gave me the warm fuzzies about wanting to do images again. Was seeing how good that came out on anodized aluminum. I noticed that the glossy stuff, those cards that I got some real thick ones this time, but I got some that were matte finish, and they look totally different than the gloss ones. And it may have been because of the thickness, because the gloss ones I had were the thinner ones. You know, there's 2 different thicknesses that are floating out there. The real thick ones, and then those look kind of flimsy anodized cards. And I don't know if it was the thickness or the coating or both, but one of them looked a lot whiter and chalkier and one look a little bit more gray.
So there's 3 thicknesses floating out there in 2 different finishes. There's a gloss finish and then the matte finish. And honestly, the matte finish I've been having a blast with on the
Yeah.
thicker ones.
Yeah.
It's a much stronger coating than those thin
And
glossy
the
ones.
card doesn't warp either, because
Yeah,
that's
that's always a nice added feature.
no. But yeah, I got a couple 3,000 of those things just to play with, the matte ones, the thicker ones, and they seem to do great.
Yep. And yeah, on the thin ones, the trick is 2 passes and then a cleanup pass, and you have to run them fast so they don't warp at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're going to be digging more into that, because I think we're going to actually start selling pretty soon, aren't we, Grant?
What are you selling?
The Aurora.
This year.
Yeah.
I'll feel better about it once I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got
Dude,
one. Grant's
I'd pick
getting
one up if you change the power source on it or the laser source on it.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said I'd buy one if you guys changed the laser source on it.
He likes the variability of the JPT, and I think they're a little hotter too.
Yep.
Yep. That's what I would go with.
Well, coming October, we're adding on to our place over here. Right now, I'm using, I don't know if y'all know a whole lot about it, the business. So Clay, the president of Thunder Laser, co-owns a quilt shop called Stitch in Heaven. And so Thunder Laser works in that building with Stitch in Heaven. It's really Stitch in Heaven's building. And so whenever I demo or do samples, I'm using Stitch in Heaven's Thunder Laser machines, if that makes sense. But we're adding on over here, and I'll have a demo room. It's my office, and I'm going to have the Nova 35, Odin 32, 55 watt coherent, and then Aurora.
And I'm going to go over there and set him up with multi-angle cameras all over the place, all piped into OBS Studio using NDI.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
I'm going to make a bunch of videos.
And I've got mine set up. I got my tablet where I can control my scenes and all that stuff. So I'm starting to put some together too. I'm starting to have a little bit of time to throw some videos together. Just
Your
Yeah, I
general
saw your last video. It's pretty good. Good job,
What's
by
that?
the way.
That
Break down and get a stream deck.
no, I don't need that. I can do it for free, almost.
I was
My
looking at
capture
those,
cards weren't
Travis.
free.
I was actually thinking about, instead of getting the Elgato, getting the loop deck version, because it's got some other things that could be more useful for video editing. Like it has 6 pots on the sides, it has physical buttons at the bottoms, and then it still has like 15 of your LCD buttons, just like the Elgato 15 does. It's not as big as the 32, but like I said, it's got the pots and physical buttons that are very useful for editing.
Now, Grant, you touched on Stitch in Heaven, and somebody might have chuckled because I did. The first time I heard that Clay was part of a quilting store, I was like, "What?" And but that thing
Pull up the website.
It's like the biggest one in Texas. They do cruises. They have retreats. They're building like places to have them. I mean, this thing is
bigger,
no
not
joke.
just Texas, U.S. There's
In the
people that
US?
travel from other countries to come visit. They have a retreat center where they host events that they just finished building, and they do the vacations on the cruises and all that. It's huge. Whenever I came to interview for my job and I walked in the front door, I was like, "Am I in the right spot?" It's kind of weird.
Yeah, and that's what was so funny, because I drove right past it the first time. First, I thought it was a liquor store. And then,
It's across the street.
and then I went back by and saw it. I was like, okay. Hey, you're going to have to keep you're going to have to keep your mic muted, Jason. It's doing some crazy stuff.
I think
You
he's
got a
like turning into
T-Rex
a
in there.
dinosaur or something.
I'm a
Yeah,
Texan.
that's straight up from the Jurassic World there.
Every time I mute him, he turns it back on. That's funny. Are we fighting it? Are we fighting over it? Let's see if we can click the button the fastest. He's having some audio troubles, maybe.
Well, hey Grant, it's good to hear about the stitching. Oh, Grant, it's good to hear about that Stitch in Heaven though, because I didn't know about it, and we tear through a ton of those quarter bundles here. So, and we've just been getting them from wherever we can online. but I'd rather support someone that I already do business with.
For sure.
Did-
Get on there, man.
I always, I don't know, Grant, if you know this or not, but I've always had the impression that the reason he got into Thunder Laser to begin with, maybe originally, was so he could get a discount since he needed to buy a bunch of lasers, and then figured if he
Yeah.
sold a few, maybe that would be cool, and then it just exploded from there.
Well, first he had
I
the
think-
ULS. He had the ULS, and they were cutting fabric with that. They cut fabric for applique quilts, and so he was using the ULS machine, which is American made, and he needed another one because the production was growing, and he didn't want to spend $40,000 again. So he's looking into companies, found Thunder Laser, and like Brian was saying, he was a customer, and then became the dealer.
Yep.
I'm glad he did too. He's done a great job of putting this all together.
When do we get our resort and retreats and stuff?
Dude, I want to have like the Thunder Bus and everything.
Yeah, that's what
You
I'm
know?
saying.
Thunder bus.
Yeah. The Thunder Plane. Yeah. Absolutely. One of these days, if you need it, one of these days, maybe we could have on-site techs and they're peppered all over the United States. And if they're not, we'll just fly them over.
So,
There
and
you
then we
go.
can start calling you Thunder from Down Under.
Well, yeah, but then we'd have to sell our machines for 60 grand a piece like Epilogue to pay for all that fancy stuff.
Yeah.
I'd rather just keep it simple.
Hey, so since Clay's using his to cut fabric, and I do a lot of cut fabric and cut vinyl and all that kind of stuff. When's he gonna push Thunder China to do belt fed laser, where you can just load up bolts of fabric and just have it feed it through and while it cuts?
Well, they have all of their pieces pre-cut into like 24 by 18 sheets. That's how they order it, and they
That's
just
a
don't really
disaster
have a
waiting to
need
happen.
for it.
You can do that with the UX.
We're all just sitting here watching the background like that's gonna fall. We know it's gonna fall.
Yeah, all those tubes are going to fall over.
Yeah, that's what I was.
All right, sorry, Grant. I was distracted by the cart behind you. What did you say?
Me too. I don't even know what I was talking about.
About
used
a belt-fed laser.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do that anytime soon. At least Clay, like Stitch in Heaven, just has them pre-cut into sheets that'll fit. They only have the Nova 35 here.
They only have the Nova 35s here.
Yeah, you could get the Titan 250
Yeah, you can get the Titan 250.
Jason,
and
you
stroll
better
it
fix
across
your
that
mic,
way.
man.
Because it's a 5x8 bed, I think, on the Titan 250.
But they don't want to make that anymore.
5x8 flatbed.
They don't want to make it anymore, but they will, won't they?
Oh. I don't think so.
Really?
I had somebody ask me about it, and I reached out to them, and they said, "Oh, we're not gonna make that anymore."
Well,
There must not have
I'm
been a big enough market.
I'm sure there's a reason.
So Grant, when are you going to start showing us all your quilting?
Dude, I
We
don't
know
do
that's
any quilting.
we know that's why you went in there originally applied for.
Yeah, they just threw me over here.
Push you in the back.
My wife actually works for Stitch in Heaven. She does marketing stuff for them. So we both live in we live together in Tyler, an hour away. And so we ride up here together and then eat lunch and go home together.
You and
Nice.
your wife live.
Convenient.
You and your wife live together. Wow.
Unfortunately for her, she has to live with me.
I think this is the most I've ever heard Grant talk.
He's usually selling machines. I
I
get
talk all
some
day,
machines
every
don't
day.
work very often.
Everything over email. So
So for the rest of this session, let's just ignore Brian and just talk to Grant.
Well, I
This
gotta
is
go.
kind of a sales call. No. So
I'm on
anybody
the
has
phone
anything, like I
every
said,
day.
be sure and pop in here, kick your mic on and say it, or we'll just keep on going.
Yeah.
has anyone
John,
ran the focus
John?
test on the in Lightburn yet? In the new laser tools?
Oh yeah.
That you talking about the ramp test? That's been in there
Yeah.
for a while, I think.
Yeah. Are you talking about
or
that?
at
Or are you
least-
talking about like the hatch testing and stuff?
I don't know. It's under laser
Uh,
tool menu now, and it's focus test.
The focus that focus calibration or whatever has actually been in there for a long
Yeah.
time. It's been in a different place.
Yeah.
But it uses the
Never
full
knew it was
Z-axis control. Instead of building a physical ramp, it just keeps moving the bed. It's
Yeah.
not as great with ours. You have to set it up right because our autofocus sensor will stop the bed from working. Once it breaks the beam. Most
Yeah.
lasers autofocus has a stylus on the on the nozzle, and that works better with that because our bed will stop before it can move up enough. So what you have to do is actually space your material on a piece of 2x4 or something so the bed's low enough
Just don't,
as it's coming up, the
just don't put
autofocus.
your material in front of the beam.
Right. Well, no, the bed will hit the beam. See,
Not,
before,
no, not if you set it up. Well, I don't know
yeah,
how you set
Because
it
you
up. The
just
way
drop
I
your
did it, it
nozzle,
worked just
or you
fine.
drop
yeah,
your nozzle head down farther.
yeah,
That's
you
what
could
I
drop your nozzle head
that's
down.
what I did.
You could do that too. But yeah, same principle. You just got to work it so that the
Yeah.
autofocus doesn't
I was
interfere
just
with the function.
I was shocked to see that my best focus, at least at the surface, was at 4.7 millimeters and not 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a nominal value that they've come up with. You know,
Yeah,
each lens has different properties, even though they're mass produced. You know,
Mhm.
so fine
right.
tuning it could definitely gain you an advantage. And we've heard it be as far off as 4 or 5 millimeters on some of the 4-inch heads.
Wow.
So not very often. I think there, and
So
I think
when
that lens was actually maybe out of spec. You know,
Yeah.
Brian, when that happens, you need to tell them to reverse their lens and put it in correctly.
well, a lot of times that is what it is. That happens, and especially with ours because you got to flip the tube upside down to remove the lens, so it's upside down when you're looking at it.
Yep.
You know, and then everybody goes curve up, and then you put it up, and then when you flip the nozzle around to put it back in, it's
Yeah.
upside down again.
Well, and,
So
and plus the 4-inch ones, it's actually kind of hard to see the curve on a 4-inch because they're pretty flat.
yeah,
So
well,
trying to
if you
figure
can
out which
see your
side goes.
reflection in them, it's the right side, the curved
Yep.
side. So
Yep. I can't tell you how many times I've had to take a little piece of, I always take this little guy and like balance. I'm like, okay, there, it's rocking. We're good.
yeah, so
It's not that hard to see.
On a 4-inch, maybe it's just me, but on the 4-inch, I think it's tricky to see.
I don't have a 4-inch, so could be.
Oh yeah, the 2-inch isn't a problem, but the 4-inch is almost darn flat.
Is
So
it? Okay. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of tricky to see on those ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to get a 4-inch, but I don't know.
Honestly, unless you're doing super thick stuff, I wouldn't. I rarely use my 4-inch.
Yeah.
you know, I was gonna say the same thing, but I'm in a different boat because I don't make things every day out of everything, but Travis does. I don't ever use the 4-inch lens, even when I cut 4-inch thick foam.
Yeah.
I actually prefer it on 1/2 inch because your nozzle is closer to the material because you're going to focus a millimeter away. That'll get you almost halfway into 1/2 inch, and your spot size on a 4-inch is double, so you're effectively cutting your power in half with a 4-inch lens.
Right,
And
and making a
material,
wider
the
curve
curve is
too.
wider. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
My go-to lens is what I use on almost everything is 1.5 inches.
I was gonna.
And-
How thick can you cut with the 1.5 inch? I had someone ask about that the other day. I think.
I haven't really tried pushing it,
Effectively.
but I've done 1/4 inch Baltic birch just fine with it.
Okay.
But I've never really tried pushing that lens to see how thick I can go. But
Yeah.
it'll do 1/4 inch like a dream.
Okay, but
And
did you get that finer focal point basically so you can have the engraving a little tighter? And
No,
get your
actually,
line angle
I
up,
got it
or-
for doing my actual normal cuts on my 1/8 Baltic birch that I
okay,
normally
on the
run.
thin stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I can run my machine faster. I mean, I'm running 55 to 65 millimeters a second cutting 1/8 inch because of the lens.
Yeah.
So with that lens, did you buy a tube and everything, or did you just put that lens in like the
Yeah,
same
it's
tube
like
after
6.
the 2-inch?
I'll just center it right in. Yeah, 4 fingers down.
You've got business to do.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're good. You're good. You're good. Take care of business. No, my question, Travis, was do you have a separate tube for that lens, or did you just put it in your 2-inch?
No, I have a separate tube. For the $9 that it is for a spare tube,
Yeah. And
it makes the whole tube lens package about $40 after shipping.
yeah. Now there's really no difference between where the lens is on our 2-inch lens and our 4-inch, other than the depth of the shoulder, the length of it, because on the 4-inch it's a lot shorter, so it'll go up into the head farther. But that actual lens tube is identical on the 2 and the 4-inch. The difference is the 4-inch has that spacer in between it and the nozzle to get that extra 2 inches of play that's in there or whatever. You can put different lenses in. You just have to manually think about. You have to manually focus, and do the math. So, but APC has some kits. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
American Photonics, and you
Yep.
can get a whole kit. You can get the 1.5 and a 1 inch and a 2 inch and a 4 inch, and they all focus with a AAA battery is what he uses, and it's same across the board. So that's a neat thing. Of course, that throws autofocus on our Thunders out the water, which is only applicable for the 2 inch head anyway. You don't use autofocus for any other head,
Yeah,
so that's
right.
not a big thing.
Right.
I don't see too many people with those APCs, but they glue the lenses in.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't like the fact that they glue them in. I know that Tommy,
Yeah, he's got one.
Tommy's got that one there.
Yeah,
I know they said it's not a problem having it glued in, but
yeah, I like that actually, because have you seen his little demonstration with the plastic screws where he just barely tightened it and it deformed the crystal, it deformed the optic and changed the properties. Yeah. So if you tighten your ring down too tight, you can actually compress that stuff and actually change the properties of the lens. So it's a real smart idea to glue them in that respect, because they're not under any kind of compression or tension. Then there's no flexure there. You know, that'll harden up just the way it wants to be, and that's really a good thing. And those are good lenses. He makes a lot of optics for the military and NASA. So I figure if he ought to make a pretty good laser lens. And he's out of Florida. Of course. Go ahead.
I used that set on the K40 for about a year, and I just bought that four pack set that Tommy has as well. I love it. I just think, I mean, to me, throwing that battery underneath of that over top of the material under the lens is just phenomenal. Not have to worry about the Z steps with the focus test, or and like you said, it's kind of ambiguous about where your focus might be, but this takes it completely out the door. It's just, I love those things.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that favor them.
Yeah, really. I mean, because APC and 2.6, those are kind of like your top leaders of the lens world. So as long as you're using one of those two, I mean, you're golden. And the big thing when I help people out with lasers, I find I'd say 70% of people are over tightening their lenses in the tube. Basically, I mean, you don't need much pressure on those at all. So I mean, I come from back in the day before we were running those silicone rings in the tubes where the lens was just straight metal on metal. And that's one of the reasons they added those silicone rings, is because people were over tightening them and shattering their lenses. So that helps absorb it a little bit.
Sorry, I was looking up that video about the lens distortion. There it is right there. I'm gonna link this, but let me mute it for a minute, and I'm gonna share my screen too. And I'll put this in the thing here in the chat, and let me share this. Check this out. This is kind of wild. This is what I was talking about earlier. That's a Znse lens in a mount that has some Teflon or plastic screws, and he's just barely turning it with his finger, and you see what it does?
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was a short video, but you can replay it. I put it back. I put it in the chat. But it takes very little pressure to distort that lens, and that's actually in the strong direction.
Wow.
So yeah, see, it can change. It can alter your beam signature.
Huh.
So,
that's crazy.
One lens I've been having fun playing with is it's made by 2.6, but it's a Znse diamond overcoat lens. So it's got the anti-reflection built into it. And it's the weirdest thing. You cannot physically see through it with your naked eye. But it's designed for doing metal work. And so that's, people are always asking me, how I'm able to cut metal with it. And it's those lenses that protect the rest of my laser to keep the reflections from coming back through. But you really got to make sure that you get it in the right way. Otherwise, you're reflecting your laser beam right back to the tube.
Oh, yeah.
At full power.
You know what? I need to look into one of those, because I had one of those little endoscopic cameras mounted in my beam combiner. Did you remember me doing that? Did you see that video?
Yeah.
Where I actually fired it. You could see the material in the camera. But of course, when you fired it, everything just went, and it was blinding. If I could attenuate the visible light uh, and keep the laser from hurting whatever I'm using to attenuate that light, I think I'll be able to actually see inside the nozzle and the material as it's processing something. So I can maybe look at to see if there's smoke or the Venturi effect going on inside that nozzle. Or I could actually see the substrate with the right optics and see where it's being burnt away. And I
Yep.
want to do that.
Well,
So I'm
and
going to
something
look into
else you could
those.
do is if you left your red beam pointer in there, you can just grab a second beam combiner and mount your endoscope in a secondary beam combiner.
Yeah, of course, then you're cutting your power. Have you seen how much power you gain by pulling that beam combiner out and not using it?
No.
I pull mine out. Yeah, no optic is
God.
100% efficient, so you could lose a couple of
Yeah.
watts on the thing. And if you're talking about a Nova 63, that's a pretty big difference if you're in the lower right corner, because that's the farthest travel.
Well, then I almost wonder if adding a, this is going to sound odd, but I wonder if I was to make a little device that acts kind of like a beam combiner, but stacks a few of those lenses up, if I can get the power down low enough to do better engravings on the 63.
You can. A lot of times they'll use a beam expander or they'll attenuate it using optics. There's actually an optic that's made for that, to attenuate the beam, so that you can run at a higher power on the 130 and still achieve a uniform beam signature. But absolutely, you can.
Huh. Well, I sent you the links in the chat for that lens that I've been using for doing
Okay.
metal work. They're about $45, so they aren't too bad. But yeah, I'd give one a try. That might actually work.
Okay.
Can you point us in the direction, Brian, of where you might find that attenuator you were referring to? I'd love to be able to dial back my 130 a little bit.
Yeah, CO2. I saw an article about it. I don't know that there's a device made.
There, I'm getting ready to pull it up or link it. I think this one will do it.
There are attenuators, there are expanders. Yeah, there are CO2 laser attenuators, and that's what you're looking for. There's a couple of companies that make them actually. ULO Optics is one. Newport is one. Photonic Solutions is in England.
I might have to pick one of these up to try, because I never even thought about that. So this is actually polarizing. It's sending the laser through a series of plates to give it a p polarization. So I wonder what that actually does in real world.
I don't know. Let us know.
All right, buy me one. I'll test it for you.
Well, that went the wrong way fast.
But I mean, that should drop it. It should drop it down.
Yeah, and I saw a simple one. Coherent makes one. Edmund Optics, you can find one there. The $500 for that one. Optical power attenuator. So that's what you're looking for. I hope that's a good enough description.
Yeah, I don't know that this is the one that you would actually want, because after going through 6 plates, it's still, you're only losing 2% power.
I thought that there was an actual lens that would do it, or it may have been a lens array, but I think it was Znse. Theoretically, you could stack up an
That's
array.
a good start. Just the
combiners.
terminology alone is.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, you could stack up a whole bunch of lenses, because every optic is going to not be 100% accurate or 100% efficient. So you could stack up a whole slew of beam combiners, wrap them up in duct tape, and put them in front of the beam or something and test, and then take them out until you get the, a range that you can handle. That's an ineffective way to do it, but I mean, there's no efficient way to attenuate power like that other than dissipate it.
Yeah, and or if you want to do a bunch of math, you could grab something like a beam buddy housing and drop twin lenses in it. Something.
Yeah.
I don't know what the math would be, but probably like a 4-inch and then a 1-inch should get you about a 2-inch or something like that.
Just throwing this out there, with a neutral density filter from like photography, would that do anything to a laser beam?
Yeah, it'll burn a hole right through the filter.
Yeah.
No, if it was a glass, they make them in glass. I mean,
yeah, it would have to be zinc selenide. Yeah, I think it'd have to be made out of zinc selenide. And I don't know if I would use a focusing lens, because you don't want to focus it either. It doesn't need to be focused until it hits. I would use a beam combiner since that is has a zero correction on that optic. It's just flat. I think that would be a better choice than actually trying to use in focus lenses on that. Can you imagine trying to align that beam if it was focused at the tube and hitting the mirrors focused? Of course, it would lose. But that's why you don't want to focus it until you get right to where the material is, typically.
Okay, Brian, tell me what that means.
Like
No. What I just put in chat. So I found some information that explains the wave plates, and I come from a photography background, and I'm still confused on how that actually affects the laser. I mean, all you're doing is turning it from a linear to a circular polarization, but what does that actually do to the beam and stuff?
Well, I don't know.
Well, you're tech support. You're supposed to know these things.
Well, this is not part of our lasers.
No, but it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, do some research and let us know next week.
Well, yeah, you're gonna give me some homework. Yeah.
We'll make a video.
I don't have much on my plate. I don't have too much on my plate to do that kind of homework. I can look at it a little bit though and see. I'm pretty sure there'll be a simple optic array that'll work. That's zinc selenide or something like that. I still think a series of. Well, I tell you what, Travis, you can tell how many you're going to need. Do you have a power meter, a caloric power meter for the laser?
I don't have one for my laser, but I don't know if the ones for my fish tanks would work or not. The lasers might be too much power for those.
Yeah, maybe so. We can figure something out, or I can test it on mine because we can do it in a percentage of efficiency. But all I need to do is take a measurement of how much power I'm outputting with the beam combiner in, and then take it out and get another, and there you go. That's how much it's going to attenuate. And then you can see how many you need.
I might pick one up because they're only like what, 100, 150 bucks, something like that.
The whole kit, the whole beam combiner?
Yeah. Or no, I mean just for the meter.
Oh, no, they're like 300 bucks or 400 bucks, the little ones that we get, the little digital ones. You can get a manual one, you can get an analog one, but you have to time it just right. And there's no correction for if you've used it once, you have to let it cool all the way down, back to room temperature before you do it again. Otherwise it'll be off because it'll be starting from a different temperature reference when you start the timer. And that's why I like that little electronic one, because it detects whatever the surface temperature is and accounts for that. It corrects for that, and it'll beep when you need to let off of it. Instead of watching a clock, it adjusts that so that you get an accurate count and you can use it over and over again without having to let it reset or go back to a certain temperature or whatnot.
Yeah, I might look at picking one up because, we're still looking at adding a fiber flatbed, and I'm definitely going to need one of those for that. But it's got to be a lot bigger than these little Cloud Ray 200-watt ones.
Yeah. But we can figure out about a beam combiner how much energy it actually dissipates, and or how much it affects the beam, and then maybe go from there. But that might be a cheap, easy way to do it. You can figure out a way to at least temporarily put some optics in line, in some area near the tube, just to test the theory. But that would be the way I would try it if you really wanted to dial that down. Because that way you could get above 30%, and you're going to be even out of the gray area. You could run at 30% power and effectively maybe attenuate it down to 8 watts or something like that, or 7.
Yeah.
So, or you could just put your hand in front of it until the engraving starts looking like it's getting dark again. Then you have to move your hand, find a new spot.
Real fast.
Or it burned all the way through. So, anywho, if anybody's got anything, feel free to jump in. Looks like
there's some names in here that
there's quite
Richard CN.
We won't put you on the spot, but feel free to jump in.
Travis, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I had some audio issues earlier. I wanted to touch back on you were talking about a belt feed.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that set his up using the U-axis and the pass-throughs. So you could do like your spool in the back
Mm-hmm.
and have it feed through the pass-through using the U-axis to go certain steps like a rotary, but just changing your
Yeah.
steps to where it goes through, and you have a retrieving spool on the front that would draw the material through. He's done it that way. He does a lot of carbon fiber, or not carbon, carbon fiber, like raw carbon fiber cutting.
Yep.
And he just sets the machine up and he'll let it run all day long because it cuts certain shapes. And he'll just set it up, hit start, and let that thing run like all day long, and it does really good. I'd have to see how he did the setup. I know he's got a spool in the back. It's got like a kind of like just like a friction brake, so it doesn't just free spool.
Yep.
And then he's got the motor on the front, the stepper on the front that drives the wheel that rolls it up as it draws it. And I mean, from what I understand, I mean, it works
Yeah,
perfectly.
you can implement it. That's what the U channel was originally used for, was for
Yep.
that axis, not a rotary, but for that system. So I mean, you could retrofit a laser to do that, because like he said, it's just a stepper. It's just how you want to construct the conveyor and what it's, all of that, which it looks like it's some sort of metal, kind of like chain link fence, almost kind of like they make. I know it's smaller, like
Well,
that.
You wouldn't need to do anything like that. You have your bed up flush with the pass through piece in the back, and the material would just draw up and over on top of the bed. And as it cuts like 20 pieces, then it steps forward like, I don't know how many ever steps it needs
So it's
to.
not an actual belt. It's just a roller that's pulling the fabric, and it's not an actual belt drive.
It's like a vinyl printer or something where you have the pull feet on the bottom to roll up the material if you're doing a long piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of setup, but you're using the stepper motor to actually control how many steps it takes to get full bed off of the machine to open it up for a new job.
Yeah.
And you can set it up to do 20 or 30, and it'll just sit there and it'll run through continuously. When it's done with one bed full, it'll draw the wasted material, and then it'll cut the next, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, that's the way those ones that I've seen work, but they have a metal conveyor belt that's kind of like a screen that runs across it, that actually pulls the material through.
Yep. Well, what I'm thinking though is, I mean, like what Jason's talking about would be really slick, because when you're not using it, you could clamp it onto the front, and then when you're not using it, you could just take it off. Whereas a belt feed, you're actually physically modifying the machine.
Now, what if you just put a spool on the back and run the spool on the back and put the full roll on the front? It'll automatically have friction because it's going to be heavy, and just have it pull from the back across.
Oh, that never works.
Just roll it up on the other side.
Friction on the full roll.
Yeah.
You've got vinyl printers and stuff, right, Travis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. You basically mount a bracket on the back where you'd hang your.
I know exactly what you're talking about. The only thing I'd have to do is I'm gonna have to look at a lead shine and see what size stepper would be powerful enough to do that.
Travis, you got two expensive steppers as it is. You got kids, you've got a stool, get a hand crank, put them on the stool.
That would be consistent.
On your Thunder, you just use a regular Thunder motor with the driver on it. You mean you'd have to because of the way Thunder's set up. You just use the regular integrated stepper like you do for the rotary. Because I mean that thing's got probably 120 something or 20 or 30 nanometers of torque. Mira. So yeah, that motor would be plenty strong enough, because you're not putting that much torque on it to actually just rotate that spool. I mean, it's not a lot of load that would be on it, so you wouldn't have to worry too much about that.
Yeah. So would it be? Let's see. Yeah, because the ones I'm looking at now. Let's see, because I'm looking at these steppers that have brakes on them, but I don't know that you'd actually want brakes on it.
Well, these are servo controlled. They have feedback, so they're going to fight for position. Wherever you tell them to go, they're going to go. So they brake automatically. If you go over there and try to grab it and move it now, it'll fight you. That's a brake.
regular integrated motor has a stop. It's not a stop brake. It's a holding torque is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
It's got I don't know what the holding
built in.
But well, I mean the stepper has a brake built in, so to speak, but the brake I'm talking about is in the back, just to provide enough drag to where when the stepper kicks in, it doesn't yank on it and then release it and then leave you with a bunch of loose fabric or loose material.
Backlash.
You would just have some like a friction. You'd have some kind of friction mechanism on the back just to keep the spool in the back from free spooling.
Yeah, just like a drag setting on your open face reel. Yeah. So.
Thing. But yeah,
so I've never dealt with, I mean, I've hooked up single stepper motors, but would it be possible, can I run a splitter since it's only feeding a signal on the U channel? Can I split that signal to two separate drivers?
I've seen people run, not with that feedback one. On a regular stepper, I've seen people run two off of one driver.
Well,
the
Thunder will work the same. The only thing you'd have to do is if you look at your rotary, the wires that go into the motor, there's two wires that are independent and there's two that are coupled together. The two that are independent, one would be the way it is now, and then the other one you'd have to swap those wires to reverse direction on the motor to get the opposite side to turn the opposite direction. As long as they're running off of the same input and they both have power, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, I haven't tried it, but
you'd have to have two drivers.
It's not, well, because on something like this, it's not like we're looking for the same precision that we are on a rotary. You know, we're just trying to get within a millimeter of it going forward.
I can say with probably 100% certainty that one motor would be more than sufficient to drive a mechanism like that.
I hate to interrupt, but we probably need to get back on track because Thunder ain't got no conveyor belts or nothing like that, and I don't want to waste all the time on stuff. We can do that in the after thing. Sorry, we got a little too far off course. I like getting off course, but not too far. So.
Hey, Grant started cool posted in the stitching thing or quilting thing.
What's that, Jason?
I said I posted a link in the chat for something.
Yeah, the Autoboss.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's pretty cool.
What is it?
I don't see it. I don't see a link he posted.
It's a video.
Back in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, probably before I hopped on.
The very beginning.
But
it's on the web or the page.
What time is it? We got 10 more minutes. If anybody's got any questions or comments, please be sure and let us know.
I had a quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
Posted it.
When I ordered my laser, the Roto Bosses were out of stock. Is that something that's back in? Do you guys know, Jason? Or
I think they've stopped production on the Roto Bosses to make the Auto Boss. No, I'm just kidding.
They're not out of stock. We're trying to fill orders as fast as we possibly can. So
you have a rough idea on what the current lead time is if I place an order today?
It depends. You have to go through Grant and them to see where the tracker's at and what we got going on, and you know if you already got your laser, things like that. But they can work. They can work out the details. I make them. I don't try to get involved too much in what they do as far as the scheduling and ordering and stuff. So I would check with Grant. And,
he jumped off. He must have known that he was going to get a logistics question about the rotary. He jumped off of here.
Yeah. A couple other questions too about doing highly reflective materials, anything high gloss or powder coated or anything like that, and getting reflections coming out of the machine or anything. Is that a concern?
It has happened. It's not very prominent. I see it on some tumblers sometimes on powder coated. If you got your power up too hot, it'll burn the acrylic lens in the red dot up because it feeds back through the system. But generally speaking, no, it's not a big problem.
What about reflecting at an angle? Like I'm saying, like out of the machine, like for your eyes or
I got you.
in
That's
or anything like
possible.
that.
Anything's possible. Of course, as long as you got the machine closed, and none of the safeties are defeated, it's class 4 in that respect, and you can operate it without donning the proper PPE. But if you're doing an alignment or had the lid open, for instance, had to run something with the lid open, I would suggest wearing the proper eyewear, and practicing due diligence as far as that goes. But for normal operation, as long as you got the lids closed, you're perfectly safe. Is that what you're kind of after?
Yeah, just I like to keep an eye on stuff. Being I'm not new to CNC, but I'm new to laser, and I like to keep an eye on it just to make sure that I don't have any flash ups or anything like that. And I'm staring inside this thing, to make sure.
Yeah. Well, if you're
it's
staring
safe.
through the glass, you're safe. Yeah. Now you can still get welder's eye, from the visible light that's generated. So you can still sunburn your retinas, feel like sand in your eyes. But all of the laser radiation will be 100% mitigated by that glass until the point when it starts engraving it and burns all the way through it. But by that time, you'll realize it. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Hey, Brian, what kind of glass is that? Is that just standard glass or standard tempered glass?
Yeah, standard tempered glass.
Okay. Because I was actually thinking about putting some tint on mine so I can actually see in there a little bit more comfortably. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to screw anything up by dropping tint on it.
No, there's nothing special about it. You can stick that stuff on there. Be just fine. Yeah.
So but acrylic, you can just put a new piece in.
Yeah. I like having the glass in there. Because the acrylic ones, if they catch, that's usually what I catch on fire is acrylic to begin with. And then, of course, we got that video where before they had the flame sensors in them, and they stood there for, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes with a full fire raging inside that machine and didn't even know it because the extraction was still pulling out all the smoke and the glass was containing the fire. So they luckily had a camera. Well, I'm not luckily, but they happened to have a camera over it, in that area. And they gave us the footage for it off their security camera. It's crazy.
Hey, speaking of those flame sensors, is that something that you guys sell that I can add on to my 63?
Not if it's not already in there. We checked with China on that before, and at first they said yeah, and then they went to look, and the board is different. The TL timer board is different, and there's some other things that are different about it that make it work. And they said that it's not feasible to make it backwards compatible.
Gotcha. So because I've got the air assist board, if I actually hook that up, does that get me the correct TL timer? Or is it a separate TL timer?
I'm not sure. There's 4 versions of the TL timer that I'm aware of. And I'm not exactly sure what all of the differences are in them. Some of it may be in the programming, some of it may actually be, the actual pinouts and the functions on them.
Gotcha.
So that's something I'd have to check into. But generally speaking, that's not an easy thing to make happen.
So it'd be really nice to be able to add that onto my 63. That should tell you how old my 63 is.
Yeah, it doesn't have dual air either, does it? It doesn't have.
It doesn't. My dual air is sitting in a bag right over here, still waiting to be installed.
Yeah, I remember when you bought that.
Yeah, and then I got I'm like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. And then I got the box. I opened it up and I looked at the wiring diagram. Like, yep, this is for another day. Just set it aside.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think I did actually say something like that it was an advanced. Yeah, this is an advanced installation, and it really is. I wouldn't want to do it. There's no way. I don't think you could pay me enough to actually put one of those in from scratch in an older machine. It looks like such, and there's no documentation on it.
No, all you have is the wiring diagrams.
Just the diagram.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No. I wouldn't do with a 10.
Well, now you got your 35 sitting next to it, so at least you can get some kind of an idea.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, except for all the controllers on the 35 are completely different. I mean, all the way down to the control board on the display is different.
Yeah, because you got the Z-axis on separate buttons on that one.
Sorry.
Oh, and that's something. You've got the separate Z-axis buttons on the new one, and it says menu instead of ZU, and autofocus should be at the top now instead of in the 3rd row. So
yeah, except there is one thing that drives me nuts with the new controller. because I'm so used to being able to control my speed and my min and max power while it's running. I can't do that on the 35. There's no button. There's no button for it.
You have to go into the menu. Just hit menu, and then you can go down to it. You can control it while it's running.
Well, I like having the button.
Yeah, it's not an easy button anymore. Yeah, they had to make some concessions.
Yep. I will gladly trade that button out for the 2 buttons that give me, raise my bed up and down. 100%, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Constant innovation. So, well, cool. I don't have anything else. Anybody else got anything? Travis, you got any closing arguments?
Are there many people that express interest on the older Thunders on putting in dual air?
No, I've sold 3 of them in total. Those kits. One of them was to you. The other 2 sent them back.
The other 2 sent them back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then when I retrofit mine, I am not going to worry about shooting video for it then.
Yeah, well, it might make for some entertainment.
Yeah, I want that one on live. I don't know that
you'd want to see that entertainment.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I want that one on live video.
Appropriate language is the problem.
Right.
It'll just be a solid video of beep.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, hey, I hadn't forgotten about trying to get with you, Travis, about the video cards.
Asking a question in here.
Yeah, go ahead. Please, go ahead. You got one?
Yeah. You guys were talking to the other person about you guys were talking about the glass.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right, good. You guys were talking about the glass, and it's coded for the level 4 laser or whatever, but you also said in the same breath that you can get welder's eye, so we're not supposed to look at the actual laser as it's lasing the work through that glass because it doesn't prevent anything from damaging your eye?
Well, no, that won't necessarily damage your eye. I guess if you looked at it for hours, you could, but I promise you, I stare at mine constantly as much as I do watching popcorn pop in the microwave. I press my face right to the glass still to this day. So no, the glass is not coated technically. It's just standard tempered glass, but it does absorb 100% of the 10,600 nanometer wavelength of CO2 radiation. So you won't get a laser beam in your eye, but you might still get some discomfort from the visible light that's being able to be passed through. If that makes
sense.
It's
like staring at the sun.
Yeah, it's basically like staring at the sun or staring at a bright flashlight or something. You're going to get a temporary little spot in your eye. They'll go away in 5 to 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Okay, so it's probably not recommended to look at it then like laser or arc welders welding. You shouldn't do that either.
Exactly.
Right. Now, that's not to say I don't stare at mine. I do. I'll put my hand on my arms right up on the machine and rest my chin on there and look right through the glass and watch it engrave.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who does that.
Yeah. So, yeah, the laser beam's not gonna boil your retinas, or actually that's what that CO2 does. It boils the water out of your eyes before it ever gets to the back of your retina. I think is what happens, but you don't have to worry about any damage from the laser beam itself. The visible light, of course, can still be discomforting or whatnot, and you may want to attenuate that. Put on a pair of shades or something, if you want to stare at it for that long. And I've even
doing glass.
So
then what about like the aftermarket glasses and stuff? They're basically the same unless they're tinted, because that's what we did. We went out and bought the glasses, but they're not tinted at all. They look like just regular clear plastic. So they're basically the same as the glass that's on the machine.
Basically, yes. That's right. It'll attenuate. It'll absorb 100% of the laser light, but it'll let visible light through. Right.
Yep. And we actually use those same type of glasses in our shop quite a bit. When we're doing high production runs that requires constant switch outs on a frequent basis, we'll override our safety interlocks for the door or for the lid and just make sure that everyone has glasses on. And we've got signs up on our door that actually state that it's, you know, class 4
2
laser, or
class
is it
2
one?
with
Or
the door open.
is it class 2?
Yeah, class 4. Yeah, class 4 with the door open. Class 2
Yeah.
closed. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got signs up, you know, that it's a class 4 laser inside here and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because you opening and closing the door every time, if you're swapping out a mug every 2 minutes, can kind of get tiring.
A little bit. Like when I was doing, I had to do a bunch of shot glasses for Jameson whiskey, and those engraved so insanely fast. I mean, I was 40 seconds in between each shot glass. And
What'd you end up doing for those?
Huh?
What'd you end up doing for those to get the engraving good on them? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
Actually, with those, I ended up just running them raw and just defocusing by about 2 millimeters and dropping my power way the hell down.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm gonna jump off here. I'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. Give us a shout if you need anything, and I'll let you guys do your thing. Does that sound like a plan? And Jones, I'll get with you about that video card thing later. I think I figured out my issue is not a bad card, but I still may need an additional, so I'm still weighing my options there. Later, Danny. I saw you wave. Hope you're doing well. All right, we'll catch you guys.
Okay.
Bye, Brian.
Right.
Bye-bye.
I'll be right back, guys. I gotta go fix the machine really quick.
Oh, I broke it.
Somebody's getting fired.
No, she's the boss. I don't think she can get fired.
Right.
We all know he ain't the boss. Oh, now Tommy,
Hey, stop
you guys can
recording.
now speak. Oh shit.
Little Johnny, stop recording.
Yeah.